Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Raucous Blum Computer Consulting monthly webinar series. As always, we'll be recording this and posting it on our YouTube channel and our website later this week. So with that, my name is Kelly Bergman, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Greg Tisdale, our Sage 100 practice leader, and might I say, all-around smarty pants. Greg has more years than we care to mention with experience with Sage 100 and consulting, so he seemed to be the perfect choice from our group to show you what's new with this latest version, aptly named version 2024. As always, if you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section and we'll answer them all at the end. And with that, Greg, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so the floor is yours.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. And as Kelly mentioned, my name is Greg Tisdale. I'm the Sage 100 practice leader. Also, I am, guess we'll call myself a senior consultant. I'll use that word senior. I'll weight that one. But in any event, I'm here to go over what's new in Sage 2024. I am planning today to show you some, not all of the changes and new features, as some of them are kind of innocuous and they sit in the background, so not really demonstratable. However, I will touch on a few of those, starting with, for those of you who are a little more technical, there is a big change in the Sage installation, and that is that Sage now installs as a 64-bit application and not a 32-bit. Not a big deal for anyone on the user side, but might be a big deal for on the back end side. So if you're in the IT side or you're responsible for doing the installations and you're not using Veracus for that, that's just something to consider. And there is, if necessary, there is a utility that will allow us to change from 64 to 32-bit. So again, today's session is on 2024. And this is the .0 release that I'll be showing you today. And the .0 release is, something we typically would not install immediately. Our practice is to normally wait till product update 1 is out. And also that ensures that all your third-party vendors or your ISVs are compatible at that point in time. So not that we wouldn't do a .0 release, it's just not our policy to do that as a normal, on a normal basis. All right, so let me just jump right into it. Let me open up my Sage 100 here. And the first thing I wanted to show you is on the help ribbon, there is a new button for resources. And this is kind of cool, because what this does is this gives you access right from your desktop or without having to get out and go onto the Sage website to all the Sage resources. So they call this the Resource Center. And here you're able to link to the Sage community. You have access to the knowledge base, the ability to update your particular contact information on Sage's website, access to Sage University, and then there are some other services that allow you to, this is where we would access your account, and the contact is to give you ability to chat directly with Sage and also to submit an online case. I will note, if you do submit an online case, Sage does have up to 24 hours to respond, so I wouldn't do that as an emergency. If you do have an emergency, obviously either call them or call us directly and we'll assist. All right. The next improvement or change I'd like to mention is Sage has made some changes to their utilities. And these are the utilities that sit under inventory, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and general ledger. And these are the delete, change, renumber, merge utilities. I don't know if people have had experience with this, but in the past or in previous versions, Sage did not allow you to access the utility at all if anyone was in the system. So that made it kind of prohibitive at times to be able to get in there and enter, the information that you want to either delete or renumber, merge, change. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to jump right in. So the delete change utility previously would lock if and not allow us access if people are in the system. Now I do have, let's see, I have item inquiry open, for instance, but now I can open up and I can get in and I can start compiling my list of the information I want to either delete or change. The caveat is I can enter it, I can save it. However, I cannot run it until everyone is out of the system and all the relative data files are posted. So in this case, with inventory, we would need PO receipt of goods, invoices, SO invoices, any production entries, manufacturing. So anything on the distribution manufacturing side would have to be updated prior to running the utility. And this feature or this option now is available under all those modules that I just mentioned earlier, so that you can get in there basically and start adding or building your data so that at some point in time you can process it when everybody's out. The other thing in kind of tag teams into that or in tandem with that is the audit reports under each one of the modules is now can now be run when people are in the system. In the past, we'd have to have everyone out in order to run the audit reports. And then along with, and the audit reports, just to mention here, it's typically the last feature in the report section under each one of the modules. So the audit report, not to be confused with the purge item audit report, but this is also a new feature that's available and not available to everyone. This is controlled by security, so you can limit who has access to this, but this is one that I would typically turn off. I mean, the whole purpose of having the audit is sort of this there for anyone to reference at any time for as long as you had the item or customers, vendors, etc. Excuse me. Okay. So in addition to being able to run the report anytime, there have been some improvements to audit tracking for all the master files as well. And again, those are, by master files, I mean general ledger accounts, your vendors, your customers, and your inventory items. So let's just take a peek. Bring this out here. Okay, so now under the More button, if you go down, you'll see in the drop down under the More button, there now is a feature for Audit Viewer. If I open the Audit Viewer, you can see that I have an audit trail here. And these are just a couple of changes I made earlier today so that we have something to look at. But the audit trail now is not limited to certain fields. It's any field in the master file gets changed or updated. That is now recorded in the audit trail that you see here in the viewer. So previously there were fields that weren't tracked, and now that's not the case. All fields in all master files are tracked. So that's just going to give us more visibility and changes that have been made. Okay, I'll close out of here. Let's see, ALE lookups have been modified as well. Let me just bring this back up again. And by that, I mean, if I go into my ALE lookups, I'll expand this a little bit so we can. Previously, if I were to start typing here and I was like, I want to look up by description, and I start typing in, say, model, for instance, and I realize it doesn't, my description, I don't have my description, number one, and my operand is different. But let's say I needed to change my operand and I want to say contains model. It used to, previous versions, it would clear my selection here and I'd have to retype it. So now it holds the selection. So if I hit find now, excuse me, description, sorry. And now if I change this to, let's try, begins with, it holds the selection. So that was a change true of all the lookups. So not just limited to inventory. This is relative to every lookup, whether it be in sales order entry, customers, vendors, etc. So just a minor improvement, but an improvement. Let's see. I'll cancel out of here. The next thing I'd like to show you is there's been some changes on the vendor master file. And the first thing being on the statistics tab, the date established for the vendor is new. We've always had that on the customer side, but now we have it on the vendor side. So if you, in our case, this is new, new install, that wouldn't be necessarily populated, but the ability to populate it is there. And going forward, as you add vendors, that it will populate automatically. The other change would be in the 1099 information that we're capturing. The first thing that's happening is the W-9 form on file checkbox has been added. So we can now check that we have that. The other thing that has been changed is if a vendor type is individual, we can now capture a social security number for that individual. Previously, we could only do that if it was a business. So just a couple of improvements or changes here to keep up with changes to the 1099 information needed. Okay. Let's close out of here. I'm going to pop into inventory because I'd like to show you one of the changes that I think is very beneficial and is something that we've been waiting for a long time. And that's in inventory. There is now the ability to delete warehouses and change warehouses. So up until now, we've had the ability in the warehouse maintenance to make a warehouse inactive. However, haven't had the ability to delete a warehouse. So let me just show you the delete warehouse. So now for those, for any number of reasons, you've had a virtual warehouse set up, you had a drop ship warehouse set up previously, maybe you had at some point in time, you had set up your salespeople as warehouses so that they had sample product, or they were storing a certain amount of product that they would deliver themselves. So this will allow you to delete those old warehouses. And I know this doesn't affect everyone, but I have seen customers who've had hundreds of warehouses basically because they did at some point make salespeople, or they had consignment that no longer happens, for whatever reason. But in this case, I would just come in. This is the delete feature. I would pick my starting warehouse, my ending, and this is important to make sure that these are matching. Otherwise, we would delete multiples. And then if I hit proceed, and now it's going to tell me, and this is like most of the utilities I have unposted data. Okay. So I would need to go back, post that, obviously, and then I could go ahead and delete this. But I will say that my understanding on this particular utility is it still forces you to maintain 2 years worth of history, which is true of Sage and most all other areas of the software. Meaning if you've had an item, for instance, that has sold in the last 2 years, you won't be able to delete it. You can only merge it. If you've had activity in a warehouse in the last 2 years, Sage is going to require that you keep that warehouse unless you purge all the data out of it. If it's older and you haven't had history for 3 years, 4 years, anything beyond the 2-year limit, it's going to allow you to delete it. All right. And then the other feature that they added that kind of tags along with the delete is that now you can either merge or renumber a warehouse. So same functionality, except now that we can do either merge or full renumber, change the number. So both I feel are a long time coming. But now that we have them, so that's something that we can use. Let's see. Let me just mention a few there's a few library master, which kind of utility functions that have changed. And again, I'll want to show a couple of them because if anyone's on the call actually does the installations or does maintenance in Sage, i.e. rebuild sort files, rebuild key files, we all know that, we can delete users out of the master console, or we could just have everybody get out. But then you always have that situation where somebody's trying to get back in while you're still in the process. So Sage has come up with a new feature, and it's under administrative tools. So again, this is something that's controlled by permission. So not everybody would have that. But if you are doing some of the maintenance features and rebuilds and utilities in Sage, this would be a useful feature. So if I open up administrative tools, now this is going to require that I know the admin password for the installation. And I'm going to open that up. And now I have this feature where I can just click restricted mode. And it's going to tell me that, look, you've just turned this on and only users that are or have the appropriate security will be able to log into Sage. So in this case, I'm just going to say yes. But what this is going to do is it's not going to necessarily kick anyone out of Sage. It is going to prevent anyone from logging back in. So if you sent out the call, please get out, and 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and somebody decides that they're going to log back in 5 minutes, this is going to prevent them from logging back in. And the other thing it will do is if a user is still in Sage, as soon as they change whatever task they're doing to another task, it's going to tell them that a message will pop up that they need to close out of Sage or that we're performing maintenance. So it used to be that we either had to lock all the users out manually or we had to shut down the application server, but this will allow us to just go in, hit the restricted mode, and we can perform maintenance and know or be relatively sure that no one's going to get in while we're doing that work. So again, not something that rolls out to all users, more for those admin type users, but that is there. Additionally, in the library master, Sage has added an email notification when you trigger a event in task scheduler. It can send an email out that the task has completed. So that is new. And I'm sure not everyone uses task scheduler, but I will mention it here because what task scheduler allows me to do, and I'll just say aging, is it allows me to run tasks on a schedule. So I can, meaning things like run a VI job. So I can automate a VI import. I can posting to journals and registers. So I can set up postings to run on a schedule. I can also have Sage print reports and email them on a schedule. So it is kind of a cool feature here that there's a lot of functions. So I did want to bring it up since we were in there, and I know, from experience that not Not a lot of our clients are using this, but since we're here, I did want to make everyone aware of that. This is something that can be leveraged to run reports, again, post, run VI jobs, just some standard tasks in Sage you can automate. And the new feature is if this does run successfully, it will trigger an email that goes to whoever is set up to receive that task email. So task scheduler, a feature, just an added feature, along the lines of Library Master is the autocomplete searches have been indexed so that anytime a change is made in a master file, they re-index. So if somebody changes a name or somebody changes a description in the item, that immediately gets indexed so that the searches pick that up. So and again, that's like kind of a behind the scenes. There have been a number of changes too behind the scenes to paperless office. And I'm just going to just touch on a couple of the things that have changed because they're not really things I can show. They're basically expanded troubleshooting features, meaning that we get a little more detail in error message. So when we're sending electronic emails from Sage, either invoices, purchase orders, statements, when we get that error that pops up that it didn't deliver correctly, or we get a Chillcat error that some of you probably have seen, over the years, we will be able to get more detail out of that particular reporting. So there's some new features to view the detail results in the electronic delivery. So this is a detail has been added to the results of the electronic delivery window, give us more information, improvements in the error during electronic delivery. So just give us ability to resize, more access to the information. And then the option to ignore errors and setup. I'm not sure that I understand why this feature would be included, but because I would think I'd want to know that there was errors, but this allows you to basically bypass the error message that pops up. So what will go, and if something fails, it's going to fail. So just a couple of things that they did differently or to enhance the electronic forms delivery process so that basically, in my opinion, to better troubleshoot it. Some changes in purchase order. These are some of the ones that I think are beneficial. In purchase order now, there is the ability when doing a receipt of goods to clear the back order. So meaning if I go into receipt of goods, take the next number, let me grab a PO here. Let's try this one. And I go to my lines, I'm going to say yes, but then I'm going to say, no, I'm only going to end up with, say, hypothetically, I only end up with 49 of that particular, and I know I'm not going to get any more. So I'm never going to get the 50. I don't want to have to get out here, go back, change the PO to 49 so that my quantity ordered and my quantity received match. So that when I get the invoice, my ordered, received, and invoice amount match so that the purchase order will go into complete status. Now I have the function that I can clear the back order upon accept. So, and I'll just open this up too here. This gives me the ability, not just for this PO, but for other POs to close out any back orders on that particular PO or other POs. Obviously, anything here that has, in this case, it's this item. It will say if there are other POs waiting for this, do you want to do the same? I can do that. In this case, I'm just going to say, no, I just want to do the one particular purchase order I'm working with now. And now when I accept and update this, it's going to clear out the back order. So to me, this It's very useful, especially when you're purchasing directly from a manufacturer, or you may be ordering square foot, you're ordering by the pound, or where you're not going to always get the exact amount, and you don't want to take the time to have to always touch the PO. So this is, to me, a time saver, a feature that I kind of like. And along that same lines, now there is a new status that has been added on the purchase order header. So let me find one. So in Sage, we have these are our typical status. So we have the new open for a new item, excuse me, new purchase order. So a purchase order is new when it's created. It turns to open when it's printed. After if it's received, and I'm sure I have one here. Oh, there. So if there's any receipt done against it, it goes into that back order status. And then only after it's been fully received, fully invoiced, and all the lines match, meaning the quantity ordered, received, and invoice match, then Sage will move it into completed status. So what they've done now is for purchase orders that have been received but not yet invoiced, there's a new status called received. There's one. So in this case, if I look at this particular PO, I have received status. And if I come up and look, I can see that my quantity received, my quantity invoiced. Okay, so I have received this, but I haven't invoiced yet. So instead of being in back order status, which is what it does today, it puts it into what is really truly received not invoiced, or received status. So again, I think that that's another good feature between the clear, the received. I think it'll just help, ease some of the pain that goes along with having to deal with the purchases clearing account. And those of you who've had to manually complete POs, that'll go a long way to helping in that situation. Let's see. There has been a few changes in sales order, and specifically I'd like to talk about is there is a feature now in sales order that allows you to change the quantity order field color to red if you don't have enough available, or if there's not enough quantity. It's a user by user option. So let me just show you where that's set up. And that's under Library Master, user maintenance. It is a preference on the user. So if I look here and I come over to display, so on the preferences tab, I can set sales order, SO ordered quantity in red when, and here I have a few conditions. Order quantity exceeds the quantity available, the order quantity exceeds the quantity on hand, or the available quantity is lower than the reorder point. So in my case, I just set this to order quantity exceeds quantity available. And let's go in, find the sales order. And I'll show you what that looks like on the sales order. And now you can see for this item battery, I have ordered 100. It's showing me that it's in red, which I'm going to say, oh, okay, what does that mean? I come down and look at my dialog box here in the bottom left corner. I can see the available quantity in this warehouse is 85.96 each. I don't know how we get 0.96 of a battery, but in this case we do. And so basically we don't have sufficient quantity. So it's letting me know visibly. So small thing, but I think that could be useful in certain situations. Let's see, in production, for those of you who do have production management, there have been a few changes here, specifically in activity codes. and it's just basically an enhancement. At activity code maintenance, there's now the ability to see the list of all the activity codes before you try to start entering. So I can see the list of activity codes. So not a huge add-on, but it is a new feature that they've added to this particular maintenance function. Let's see. Let me show you. There is again, this feature specifically is probably more for someone who is a system admin or someone who was a little more technical. But if in the event that you ever needed to move your paperless Office PDFs, so they're all stored now in a particular on the share, I'm sure under your Sage 100 somewhere, you have to move them. You have to move a server. Sometimes Fractus will do it, but this is something that in-house you could do. There's a utility. So I'll just show you. I'm sorry. This feature to the file run is a security or permissions driven, and this obviously can not be available for everyone. So it is something that would be only for somebody that has some skill in the system. And you can see there's quite a few things listed under here, but there's our ability now to relink PDF documents. So this is a new feature. It's beneficial. For years we've had it as a sit outside of Sage utility, which has enabled us to do that. But now it's built in and it does speed up the process. So even if it relates to Rockets doing the work, it's a much faster process now. Okay. And so that concludes the new features that we wanted to show you today. Now I will open up the floor for any questions or anything anyone wants to discuss related to the what we've seen today. So it looks like Keith has a question.
Yeah, we're gonna allow you to talk there, Keith.
Do you know when Scanco is going to have an update to job ops for this?
They have. I'm not sure when the compliance is due on that, Keith.
And I did just get a note that actually Scanco has 90 days to be compliant.
Okay.
So I thought it was 3 months, but I didn't want to say it out loud. But there we go. So about 3 months to be compliant with this new release. And there again, if you want to get on the list and just let us know that you're interested in this new version, we will review all of your third parties, like Greg said earlier, to make sure that they're all ready for this version. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up here. And I'd like to quickly thank Greg for all his time putting this together today. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And to all of our attendees, thank you so much for attending. We know your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you spending a little bit of it with us. Until next time, have a great afternoon, everyone.